of men, women, and children in the last days of the war. When Hitler was facing defeat, he brought the war to Hungary. I was born there, in a beautiful resort town in the mountains. We were only 263 families, and only a third was Jewish. As far back as I can remember, we had a good relationship with our non-Jewish neighbors and friends. We didn't have any television or telephone or iPods, but we had each other. We children were always together in the parks, in school, and at home. The mountains we lived in had the most natural resources. One of them was mineral water, and still is today. My father had a spa, and he used this water for people with muscular problems. He devoted his life to help everyone. My siblings, my friends, and I loved living in these beautiful mountains. But not far from us, in Germany, Hitler was ending democracy and was lining up his henchmen, the SAs, which were the stormtroopers, the SS, the security police, and the Gestapo, the special state police. My government was an ally to Germany and chose not to deport the Jews yet. Instead, ordered harsh restrictions. From 1939 until 1944, Hungarian Jews were stripped of their rights and entitlements as they had never existed. In addition, the men were forced into labor units where they were poorly clothed, ill-fed, and ultimately murdered. At the age of 9, I was thrown out of the one thing I loved most, my school, because I was a Jew. And from that on, my life changed, and so did the world. My non-Jewish friends ignored me, my education and freedom was taken away from me, and my hopes were destroyed by Nazi hatred. We didn't see any SS in our town yet, but their evil was carried out by the Arrow Cross, which was the Hungarian SS. They were feared by all people. Our food was running out, and they wouldn't let us buy in any store. A curfew was enforced, and we had to wear the yellow star. I will never forget the sadness in my parents' faces when we children were hungry, and they had no food to give us. Once a cow wandered into our backyard, and my mother risked her life during curfew and climbed out the window and milked the cow. And that was the only time that we had milk. I was the oldest of 6 children. I had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Every day, the Nazis ordered new restrictions for us. After they stripped us from our dignity, they demanded our valuables. I heard my mother say to my father, first, they took our star and turned it into a badge of shame, and now they want to rob us of our feelings of being worthy enough of owning something of value. I think my mother sewed her diamonds into my skirt to save our pride, and then she gave them to me with a purpose, to buy bread if I get hungry. In 1939, when Poland was invaded, a few men were able to escape over the mountains to us. My father, with his friends, helped them to safety. Their destination, Palestine. I don't know if they ever made it to Palestine, but one night a man had to spend the night in our home because it wasn't safe to go on. And I heard him beg my father to take his family and go with him, because when the SS come to us, they will kill our children, just like they do in Poland. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, the man was gone, and I asked my father, who are those SS, and why are they killing the children? What had those children done? And my father said, the man wasn't himself. He didn't know what he was saying. People don't do such a things. See, no one believed. The that the most civilized country in all of Europe was doing such a thing. So we didn't believe the man, and we didn't go with them. We also didn't believe that we are going to be invaded by the SS because the war was almost over. Besides, we were in this little town, this beautiful resort town surrounded by mountains. We didn't think that, they were going to come and find just a few of us. We were just a few of us. But just then, my country was trying to extricate itself from the alliance with Germany because they were losing the war. And Hitler got so enraged, he ordered the army to invade Hungary and deal with the Jewish problem. The next day, we were ordered to pack a little suitcase not exceeding 24 kilos and go to a ghetto. I didn't even know what a ghetto was, but they made me feel that I have to be punished for something. The ghetto was a brickyard, but there were no bricks being made. There were just people everywhere suffering. When we got there, there was no shelter left, so my parents took the tablecloths and the sheets from my mother's suitcase that she packed, and they built a hut, and that was our new home. We put our things on the ground, and that was our table, our bed, and everything. We were fenced in like animals and guarded like criminals. Once a day, we were allowed to go to the river that surrounded the ghetto, just to drink a little water, not to wash our face or our clothes. We children were always afraid of being taken away from our parents or being beaten for no reason at all. Every day they took men and boys to work. Many of them never came back. And then the cattle trains came, and they told us that we are being relocated to Tokai to work in the vineyard. Tokai was still in our own country in a beautiful setting. And it was a vineyard, and everyone was so happy to leave this hellish place and go into the vineyard. My mother again packed our suitcases and told me that if we work in separate places and I get hungry, to use the diamonds to buy bread. When I saw the cattle trains, I asked my father, why are we going to work in cattle trains? And my father said, the vineyard isn't that far away. It wouldn't be so bad. But when I saw that they forced 100 people in each boxcar with a small pail instead of a bathroom, I sensed that something was very wrong. When they locked the doors from the outside, we were in complete darkness. A crack in the wall was the only light we had. My father was standing by the crack to see how far away we are from the vineyard. And the boxcar was so bad, there was no room to sit. Some people were holding on to each other. Most were struggling to stay alive. The children were crying, they were hungry and cold, and when the little pail filled up, the smell was unbearable. And then my father saw through the crack that we are not going to the vineyard, and he said, they lied to us. We just left our country and we crossed the border to Poland. I was holding my 2-year-old brother in my arms, and he never stopped crying. He wasn't crying for bread or water. He just wanted to go home. And I promised him that we will be home soon. But when my father said that we were in Poland, I remember what the man said about the SS killing the little children. So I held on to my little brother so tight, and I promised myself I will never let them take him away from me. My little brother never saw his home again. We were in the boxcar for about 5 days, and the entire time I was wishing that the train would stop so we could go to a real bathroom like normal people. But most I was wishing that they would give everybody some food and water, and everybody will stop crying. When the train stopped, I thought that we have survived the worst, but I was wrong. When the doors opened, the SS with their vicious dogs yelling in German, "Get out, you dirty Jews, and make it quick." They immediately separated the men from the women. They ordered the older children away from the mothers and fathers. They made us leave our belongings at the train, and they told us that the men will bring it to us later. We never saw our fathers, our brothers, or our belongings. As we were passing the cattle train, I saw chimneys in the distance, and I pointed them to my mother, and I said, "The factories we are going to work in." But my mother paid no mind to me. In this chaos, she was trying to hold us together. She took my little brother from my arms, and she told me to hold my 4-year-old sister's hand really tight so she doesn't get lost. A man in a striped jacket came over, and he offered to carry my little brother, but my mother wouldn't let him. But she asked him, "Where are we?" And he said, "Auschwitz." But we didn't know what Auschwitz was and why we were there. There were 4 long cattle trains packed with people waiting to get off, and I again looked at the chimneys. And I couldn't believe that the Nazis had so many factories, that they needed so many of us to come to work for them. Little did I know that we were the daily ration for the gas chamber. When Hitler declared the assault on Hungarian Jews, it was during the final solution. The final solution meant that not one Jew will survive to bear witness. And in 54 days, on 147 cattle trains, 437,402 Hungarian Jews were in Auschwitz. And that was only from the little towns around the cities. The cities were long gone. When we passed the cattle train, a handsome assessman wearing white gloves and a baton-like stick in his hand. He appeared in front of us, and he pointed that stick at my mother and yelled at her, "Put the child down and go to the right." But my mother, being so desperate to hold us together, she yelled back at him, "My children will go with me." He got so angry that she did not obey him. He picked up this baton-like stick and hit my hand between my little sister. We were both bleeding, and I had to let go of her little hand. And I begged him, "Please let me go with my family." But he just kicked me away from them. And then I heard my mother call out to me, "Don't cry. I will come for you later." That was the last time I heard my mother's voice. A few minutes later, I was in a huge hall with thousands of people, but I was alone. After they yelled at us again with their vicious dog, showing their teeth at us. "Take your clothes off and your shoes and hold them in one hand. And take your valuables and put them in the bin." They had a bin there. And I quickly remembered my mother's diamonds, so I took them out of my skirt. I found 4 of them. I don't know how many there were, but I didn't have time to look for any more. So I took them out, and I didn't know where to put them because I had no clothes on my back anymore. So I put them in my mouth. After they shaved my long hair, and they branded me with a number instead of my name, I saw that they were pulling gold teeth from people's mouth in front of me. I didn't have any gold teeth in my mouth, but my mother's diamonds were in my mouth. And I knew that when they find them, they will take them away, and they will shoot me for not putting them in the bin. So for fear, I swallowed the diamonds. After, they gave me a piece of garb that barely covered my body, and they pushed us out to the courtyard. At the door was a huge mirror, and they ordered us to look at ourselves. When I saw myself, I didn't recognize myself. I was reduced to a number that represented a nothing. I was stripped of my identity and my dignity. But you see, that was their first process of dehumanizing us. And then they lined us up in rows of 5, and they marched us into a place called Birkenau, a place of evil. The SS locked the electric barbed wire gates behind us, never to let us out. It was spring, but flowers and grass didn't grow there. The sky was as gray as the mud under my feet. The wooden barracks with 3-story bunks was our luxury housing. 1,000 of us in each barrack and 10 of us in each bunk. That didn't give us any hope to ever to get out. Our food for the day was a cup of brown liquid they called soup. It was seasoned with a chemical that was destroying our reproductive organs. The twice-a-day roll call wasn't just to take count, but Dr. Joseph Mengeler's haven for human guinea pigs for his unhuman experiments. We were completely cut off from the outside world. At the end of the day, when my mother didn't come for me, I decided to go to look for her, because in this piece of rag and my hair shade, she wouldn't recognize me. But when I got to the door, the capo slapped my face and she yelled at me, "Where are you going?" And when I told her, she pointed to the chimneys. And she says, "Your mother is just about now coming out of one of those chimneys. And if you don't go back to your bunk, all of you will go today to the same place." I was so confused. Why would she say that about my mother? My mother was only 32 years old, and she was beautiful, and she never did anything wrong. Why would they do this to my mother? But I had no answers to my question. So I went up to my bunk, and I was trying to fall asleep, hoping that when I get up, this madness will be gone. But I couldn't fall asleep because the cries of little children from the outside were so sad. We had no windows in our barrack, but we had about a 3-inch opening between the ceiling and the wall. And I was on the top bunk, so I was able to look outside. So I was trying to see whether I could help, and I saw trucks coming down the road. And 2 little children, about this big, fell out of one of the trucks. And the assessman picked them up by their little feet, and he just threw them against the truck. The blood was everywhere. Those little children that committed no sin will never smile again. I was so helpless, I didn't know what to do, so I started to scream. But the girl next to me put her hand on my mouth, and she begged me not to scream or talk, because the punishment was death. So in my silence, I called to God, but God wasn't there. I was thinking, where is he, and why is he not helping these little children? Why is he allowing these people doing these things? I had the biggest fight with God. But then I said to myself, why am I fighting with God? God didn't create the Holocaust. Men did. So in my childish mind, I figured it out, that God must be in a place where he is helping other children. And when he is done, he will surely come and help us. Against all impossibilities, I did not lose faith. And the next day, I was chosen by Dr. Joseph Mengeler for his brutal experiments. I was no longer a 13-year-old child. My childhood couldn't continue in the death camps, but in a desperate effort, I had to try and save my mother's diamonds that carried her love and her sacrifice. Once a day, we were allowed to go to the latrine. If you saw Schindler's List, you know what the latrine looked like, or The Last Days, one of them. I never had the pleasure of sitting on one of those holes because I had to find a safe place to save my mother's diamonds. It would have been safer to throw them away when I found out that I cannot buy bread for diamonds, like my mother said I should. But The strength and the hope that they carried was stronger than the Nazi hatred, so I couldn't throw them away. I saw hatred so strong that when Dr. Mengele experimented on us without anesthetics, and the pain was so unbearable, I saw joy in his eyes watching us suffer. That kind of a hatred existed in the 20th century in Nazi Germany. When the SS packed the gas chambers with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and grandparents, I was there, and I saw them, and I heard them cry out for their last time, "Remember us," or the Jewish children cried out,